Mr. Frosty, Snowman with an attitude, Clayfighter for life.
In 1991, Street Fighter II would come out, and it would not only be one of the best arcade games, but would also influence the fighting game genre. In 1992, Mortal Kombat would come out, which would use digitized actors for the sprites, and would cause a lot of controversy due to its violence and gore, and was one of the sole reasons why the age rating system was made. And then the years went on, and we got games like Eternal Champions, Virtua Fighter, Killer Instinct, Primal Rage, Way of the Warriors, Darkstalkers, and so on. One fighting game from that era that felt unique for its humor and charm was Clayfighter. Released in 1993 on Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis, the game was a two-player fighting game that used stop-motion animation and had a comedic charm for its art style. You see, the whole point of Clayfighter and its marketing was to parody and make fun of other fighting games for being too violent, but as the series went on, it became more and more edgier, with adult humor.
Call me Daddy! Santa's gonna sit on your lap!
It had a platformer spin-off, a tournament edition, a sequel, another sequel, a special version of that sequel that goes for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's pretty much it. It didn't really have much of an impact or popularity like fighting games like Street Fighter, or other Interplay-owned games like Earthworm Jim. And the series could have had more potential, and after going through some development loops and development issues, it have became lost media, and today I will talk about the Clayfighter lost media. This is the Clayfighter lost media video. Clayfighter 2 Early Builds. Clayfighter 2 Judgment Clay was a sequel to the first Clayfighter game that was released in 1995. The game's plot follows after the events of the first game. After the fall of End Boss, the evil Dr. Kiln decides to collect the goo that created the fighters from the first game and make a bunch of new fighters in Mudville and make them all fight in a tournament. Development was pretty short, only having less than 6 months and switching to a newer engine while having another studio do the claymation instead of Ninja Productions, which did the claymation in the first game. And also, according to some of the people there, it was disappointing. When the game released, it was received with mixed but negative reviews. Some of them liking the improved controls but the lack of combos and abilities, and also called out the more darker and edgier tone the game had, while the first game had a more silly and cartoonish tone. The game had some cut content in the form of extra fighters. Originally, there was meant to be a fighter known as Lucy the Gorilla, who could be seen in early screenshots and footage. It was rumored that she was replaced by Tiny, but according to footage and a screenshot from 1995, both Tiny and Lucy were both fighting in it. Unfortunately, the footage this comes from has been lost to time, and I cannot find an upload anywhere on YouTube. The game's villain, Dr. Kiln, was meant to be the final boss and have sprites, but he was never put into the game and is only mentioned in the manual. He would later make his debut in Clayfighter 63 3 as the game's final boss and a playable character. Ichabod Clay was also rumored to originally be in the game, but it's unknown if this is true. There were also plans to release the game on Sega 32X, an add-on that was created for the Sega Genesis back in 1994. The 32X version would have had some enhancements and improvements to the game, but it was cancelled for unknown reasons. But did you know that there was actually going to be another port planned to release? This was Clayfighter Special Edition for the 3DO Interactive Media Player. This would have been an enhanced port of Clayfighter 2 Judgment Clay that would have had several improvements, mainly new holds, throws, and a claytality system. My interpretations also believe that it would most likely have Lucy and Dr. Kiln in it. This port did make it very far to release, being mentioned in magazines, 3DO manuals, ordering sheets in magazines, and also having a cover made for the game, but for some unknown reason it was cancelled, most likely due to obvious reasons like deadlines or something like that. But it's unknown why it was cancelled. Anyways, as of writing this video, the second 32X build has been dumped online, and the beta builds of the Super Nintendo and 3DO port are lost. Clayfighter 3 M2. In the 90s, Trip Hawkins, who was the founder of Electronic Arts, wanted to get into the hardware industry after working with his company. This then led to him making a new company called 3DO, which had an interesting concept for a console. The 3DO Interactive Media Player was a 32-bit system that used CDs, but would be manufactured by different companies like Panasonic and Gold Star. It would be released in 1993, but would deal with issues. One of the main ones being that the system was $700 at launch, which was crazy for the time, but is relatable nowadays. Also, the manufacturers wouldn't really receive money made from the games, but only the system sales. In 1995, they announced that the Panasonic 3DO M2 would be released. But unlike the last system, it was going to be manufactured by Goldstar and Panasonic, but then eventually at the end, Panasonic ended up getting the rights to manufacture it, and it was planned to be a 64-bit system. But in 1997, Panasonic realized that it didn't have the strength to defeat the Nintendo 64 and the Sony PlayStation, which were the dominant platforms at the time, and canceled the system. But its hardware would be turned into arcade boards for Konami arcade games, which, fun fact, have a high failure rate, but by the 2000s, the technology of the M2 would be used in automated teller machines and coffee vending machines. You're probably wondering, why is this important? Well, that's because originally Clayfighter 63 1/3 was planned to be a Panasonic M2 release. The game's stop-motion animation was to be made by Danger Productions again, and the characters would have a more dark and edgy look for the game, as the game was going to be more for an older audience. Interestingly enough, the areas were meant to be 2D, unlike in the final game, but then they were later changed to being 3D arenas that you could move around in. It was planned for a December 1995 release and to be the launch title for the 3DO M2, but in 1996, it was later shifted to being worked on Nintendo 64 due to it being easier to program on, with the cost of audio compression. But the M2 version of Clayfighter 3 is now lost media, alongside a bunch of other games that were planned for the system. As of 2025, the build of this is still lost and no ROMs have been dumped. Clayfighter 64 Early Builds. Firstly, there's Clayfighter 64's early build that was shown off in gaming magazines and early preview footage. The game had different HUDs that would have a special font for each character you played as, but this would slowly change over time to the one we got in the final game, and the screenshots, Hobocop and Lady Liberty can be seen in it. There were 4 characters that never made it into the final release of Clayfighter 64, those being Lady Liberty, Lockjaw, Zappa Yow Yow Boys, High Five, and Hobocop. And yes, technically there was a 5th character called Hobocop. Hobocop was going to be a homeless man wearing trash cans and parroting Robocop while drinking alcohol. This character was meant to be in the game, but was removed due to Nintendo not approving the character for their mature themes. But funnily enough, they still kept Kung Pao, an Asian stereotype, and Hoonigan, an African stereotype, in the game. Man, Nintendo in the 90s were something else. The characters and the planned areas would be added to Clayfighter Sculpture's cut, except for Hobocop. There was a rumor that Earthworm Jim was his replacement, but it was proven false as they both appeared on the prototype of the cancelled PS1 port. Speaking of which, Clayfighter Extreme was the name given to a cancelled PlayStation port of the game and was cancelled due to deadline issues, as they couldn't release the game on time alongside the Nintendo 64 version. But they also did plan to finish the game, but it was cancelled. But it was heavily marketed in promo materials and advertised for the game, even having an official cover made for the game. In 2014, YouTube account Mike Mika would upload 2 videos of the prototype, but didn't release it until 2021 when a user named Stretch the Cow, who was part of Project Beluge, did I get the name right? An archival group dedicated to archiving early builds and betas of video games. On April 17, 2021, almost 470 beta builds were dumped online, 370 being PlayStation, 20 being Philips CDI, and 80 being Sega Saturn, and in those builds was Clayfighter Extreme. Build was finally playable, and in the build, all the characters including Hobocop are present. Several of the areas of the game are playable, but it's very early since there's no HUD and a lack of sounds and music. Also, the build crashes a lot, but this is basically fond media. But I have a theory. Part of me believes that there might be another build, a complete one, or roughly complete, somewhere out there in the world, due to the fact that the game was worked on very late even after the Nintendo 64 version was already complete. And also, having a game cover that was already made and appearing in a lot of advertisements. But unlike the cancelled 3DO port of Clayfighter 2 where it had a cover and also had the RP writing pendant on the cover, while for Clayfighter Extreme's cover that was shown off, the game was given a T for teen rating, meaning it was most likely complete. Let me explain. When a video game is ready for release, they send a copy of the final build to the ESRB to review and analyze to give a proper age rating for the game. Seeing that this cover for the game has an age rating on it possibly means that the game got really far into production into being almost finished, but it was cancelled at the wrong time. But that's just my theory. As of 2025, only one Clayfighter 64 prototype and the April build of Clayfighter Extreme have been dumped online, but not the 64 build that contains Hobocop and Lady Liberty. Clayfighter 64 website tournament. Alrighty, as we talk about these last few entries, it'll get more and more obscure and hard to explain. When Clayfighter 64 came out, the game had several contests to promote it. Quite a few, ranging from a website making contest to a mail-in one that would have a Bad Mr. Frosty sculpture as the prize, but we'll be talking about a different one for today's video. One on Interplay's website, for Clayfighter 64, they held a tournament of some sorts on the website, where they would basically do a few rounds of 2 characters, and fans would have to guess which one would win in order to be entered to win a prize. The first round would consist of Blob and Kung Pao, and Blob being the winner. The second round, or in this case, the final round, would be Bad Mr. Frosty and Blob, and Bad Mr. Frosty being the winner. The prizes would consist of copies of Clayfighter 64, a Moko gamepad. Hold on. I almost said Makoto for a minute. Anyways, a Moko gamepad, which was a special Nintendo 64 controller that was stylized for fighting games, and Clayfighter boxers. Who thought of this? Anyways, the lost media of this contest was the videos that they would showcase for each round and the victory. There were a total of 5 videos, one for Blob with Jim Dunn, a Kung Pao video with Sean Johnson, a Bad Mr. Frosty video with Mac, a video that would have been some sort of highlights from the fight, and a win video for Bad Mr. Frosty. And if you couldn't already tell, the video links for this are broken and dead and are inaccessible. The only remaining one I could still find was Kung Pao's, which have been uploaded to YouTube thankfully.
Blob says he could take me. When they see us in the ring, people will be singing, "Everybody was Clay Fu fighting." They will see who the true fighter is. You will die.
But yeah, that one was found, but there's only 4 videos from this contest that are lost, and no archives have been found as of this video. Clayfighter Call of Putty. Clayfighter Call of Putty was meant to be a remake of Clayfighter Sculptures Cut for Nintendo DS and Nintendo Wii. It was planned to have a story mode, a training mode, a multiplayer mode, a 2-player versus mode, and also its Claytality system. And all the characters, minus Hobocop, were going to be playable. According to Nintendo Power issue from 2010, they plan to release the game either by 2009 or 2011. But the game was cancelled for some unknown reason. Some say it was because of hardware issues, while some say that it was because around the time Nintendo started to slowly retire the DS and Wii and work on their upcoming system for the 3DS and Wii U. But also some people believe that this game might actually be vaporware and might not exist, but it's unknown if a build of this does exist somewhere out there in the world. Clayfighter 2016. On February 28, 2015, Interplay and Drip Drop Games announced a new Clayfighter title that would include Bad Mr. Frosty, Lucidud Goo, Earthworm Jim, Hoppy, Boogerman, Tiny, and it would all total to 20 characters. And also, it includes 20 environments from the series, a couple new mechanics like a double jump, an air dash, counters, and reversals, will also bring back some of the stuff like the supers and claytalities. It was planned to be released for PC on 2016, and a trailer was made. Unfortunately, this game never came out, and I couldn't really find much from it, but apparently this is what happened. According to a former staff member from Interplay, they revealed some info about it, and they also released some never-before-seen images and photos of the series, including some unused sprites of characters like Hobocop, Bad Mr. Frosty, and the unused Dr. Kiln sprites. Also, the game wasn't going to be a remake or a reboot, but instead, a trilogy mashing of all the games, and also would have added back some of the content. I can imagine it would be like Mortal Kombat Trilogy, where that game was a mishmash of all 3 games and adding a bunch of extra things to it. It became an issue because the company stopped giving support to it and basically ignored it. This led to them doing things like, not giving funds to the team, slowly taking control over the project, demanding builds of the game every week, refusing to promote the trailer made for the game, and refusing to make an updated blog for the game. Except for 2, but most of all of the staff members jumped ship and abandoned the project because of this. They also imply that Call of Putty fell for the same reasons, but later in 2016, Interplay would put some of their IPs up for sale, including Clayfighter, but under a bundle deal, meaning you cannot buy one specific IP. Several leaked images do exist, and other than some higher quality frames, there were several images from the 2016 game. There was a 52-second video of early alpha footage of the game that showed 2 Bad Mr. Frosties fighting, but only a screenshot of it and several cropped images survived. The footage and the build of this game is still lost as of 2025. Clayfighter Cartoon. And ending off this video with one of the biggest and smallest obscure pieces of Clayfighter lost media. According to this magazine scan, it states that there were plans to have a Clayfighter cartoon in fall of 1995, which obviously didn't happen. It's unknown if a test pilot did exist and if it was made and if there were plans for it to show, but apparently there were, according to this magazine. But it's unknown if the test pilot does actually exist, and as of this video, it's considered unconfirmed media. Well, that's basically all of the lost media for Clayfighter, and if any of you guys know anything else about this, or if I got some things wrong, or if you even have some of these media laying around, contact the Lost Media Wiki or contact me. Next time on the channel, I'll be talking about cut content for Earthworm Jim 1.